Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's writing Q&A video. I'm Cam Weiland and I run the writing website Helping Writers Become Authors. And this question is from BlueNet Marketing. Here's a question I've always wondered about. If you take a sentence from practically any well-known book and put it into a Grammarly type grammar check tool, invariably it will show errors and suggestions for correction. So it's obvious that perfect English isn't the ticket to great writing, yet we are always being told to write in grammatically perfect English by the editors. Where is the balance between the Queen's English in writing and plain old expressing yourself as you see fit in your stories? It's a good question I think all writers ask at one point or another. The bottom line I think here is that grammar is foundationally important to writers, in that it gives us an understanding of the rules so that we can then have an understanding of why or how to best break those rules. I have zero regrets about learning and studying grammar and having, to grind over that in grade school and high school, diagramming all those sentences. It has served me so well throughout my life. So I really, really believe that grammar and understanding the rules is extremely important for anybody who wants to be a writer. However, it's totally true that when you actually get into writing, and particularly more artistic flavors of writing than just like, say, technical papers or something like that, but novels, stories, poetry, that kind of thing, it doesn't look like the grammar that we learned in school, and on the whole, that's considered to be a good thing. However, I think also, we've all probably ran across people who were writing things that weren't grammatically correct and they were awful. And so we're like, why? Why is some of it better than the others? And again, I think some of that comes back to understanding the rules so that you know why and how you're breaking it, instead of just being randomly, you think you know what you're doing and you don't. It's that old saying about at first you don't know that you don't know, and then eventually you get to where you know that you know. And that's an important distinction. So grammar is important, and I'm not at all saying that it isn't. But when we get into the artistic expression of writing, really it's going to depend more on evoking a certain sound. And that sound usually has to do with speech, with dialect. And I'm not necessarily talking about like really thick dialect, an Irish dialect or something like that, which would be considered thick here in the US. But just the pattern of speech that we use in real life, all the ums and the knows and the likes and the justs, which I say all the time. And not even necessarily replicating that exactly, but understanding the rhythm and the flow, and then being able to add in really poetic stuff that we wouldn't necessarily say in real life. And none of that is necessarily going to be grammatically correct. I mean, I think we can think of famous authors who love fragments, they love run-ons, and it works. But it works, I think, foundationally because they have a deeper understanding of the grammar and why they are deviating from it, versus just, throwing it out there and saying, well, this is how I talk, so this should work. The skill and the key to being a good communicator is understanding the effect of what you're saying on your audience. So just because this is how I talk doesn't necessarily mean that anybody is, understanding me in exactly the way that I want. So a lot of it is being able to kind of flip the script and look at what you're writing objectively and say, how would this be seen by an outside source? How would this be seen by someone who doesn't use this dialect, or who isn't familiar with just this, with my way of speaking and just the pattern and the flow that I'm trying to achieve? And also always asking, why am I writing this way? I think it's great to listen to your instincts and to just let it flow. But at a certain point, you have to kind of dial back and look at it and say, why am I doing this? Why does this feel right? Why is this my instinct in this moment? So that you can make sure that the effect that you're trying to achieve is actually the one that you're achieving it, and that the methods that you're using are actually the best ones for getting there. So I believe, if you don't feel confident in grammar, study that, learn it, diagram some sentences. And it will serve you well. If nothing else, you'll be able to look at a sentence and say, okay, that's the direct object, that's the subject, that's the predicate, so that you can kind of like see the pattern and separate it out and know, what pieces you're dealing with, so that you can then understand how to kind of play with them and, break those rules. And then really just, studying what works for people who are breaking the rules And why does that work? Why does it work when they're doing this with the predicate and that with the direct object, even if it's not, scientifically correct? So understanding the rules, but also just being curious and being playful and recognizing that in art, the rules are important, but they're also there to be played with and exploited so that we can find those surprising elements and moments that make people go, oh, I've never seen that before. Because really that's what we're after, that expression. So I hope that's helpful. And if you'd like me to answer your question next week, just leave it in the comments below. Please consider liking the video to let YouTube's algorithm know that you'd like more of them. And if you'd like to stop by my website at helpingwritersbecomeauthors.com, I post regular articles and a podcast there every Monday.